GRC
Okay,
foundations and IT essentials, right? Yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay. So this is the first slide that I'll use to get you a basic understanding of what GRC is. Like what I mentioned, uh, the points that we will be covering. So mostly it would be
Mhm.
me talking. You can keep reading the slides as well, ask questions wherever you feel so, but this is pretty basic. And like I mentioned, I mean,
Mhm.
boring stuff, but again, this is from where the fundamental starts, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, coming to the introduction to GRC, uh, everyone knows it stands for governance, risk, and compliance, right? Uh, Generally, whenever you are going for an interview, people would ask that just define GRC. What exactly is GRC? So the second bullet point is very
Mhm.
important, which mentions that it's a strategic approach to align business objectives with the IT and regulatory compliance. People will ask you
Okay.
what are the business objectives? Okay, so you tell me, Adarsh. I mean, what do you think generally a business objective is? Let's say for a company like Capgemini or a company like
Mhm.
Facebook, Google, what's the business objective?
So from my understanding, I would say the basic business objective of any IT companies or any healthcare industry, right, to protect the sensitive data of their customers.
That is secondary, Adarsh. First comes is the business, right? What would you do protecting the data and everything if you cannot do business? So let's say for a product company, for Google, for take for example AWS,
Mhm.
Amazon,
Mhm.
their business objective is to increase their sales, right? They want more people to jump to
Yeah.
AWS
Okay.
cloud, use their products and everything. That's their business objective.
Right. Okay.
But can they
Mhm.
sell a dime of software if that is not compliant or if it has faults or if it can be hacked or anything? People won't use it at all, right? So this is where
Right.
GRC comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
You got
Like
my
you mean
point,
to
right?
say, to scale the products, it should be compliant. Like it should be meeting the standards of uh, uh, of this, right? GRCs. That is what you mean, right?
Right, right. Yeah. On a
Mhm.
high level, yes. See, let's say if you are
Okay.
today, if you are using Myntra, Swiggy, or Zomato, you are pretty confident that
Mhm.
you are storing your card data, you are mentioning your home address, phone number, email, everything there's on Zomato, Myntra, etc. Right? Let's say if tomorrow a
Mhm.
breach happens and Zomato declares that all our data is now stolen, you would be very worried using Zomato next time, correct? You
Okay. Yeah.
probably you will shift from Zomato to some other application because you are not that confident about using Zomato anymore. So so today
Mhm.
privacy information security is more of a reputational thing rather than just a financial loss or something. So it's more of a reputational game right now. And any
Yeah.
business in any industry, you talked about IT, healthcare, I would say any industry, XYZ industry, any industry needs to be compliant, needs to make sure that their information security practices are up to mark because that's where the industry is moving, right? Today, a customer will move away from
Mhm.
you if even if he finds a slight whisker of doubt in your products that the data is not safe, the product is not safe.
Mhm.
So the customer will just go away and find a new service provider or a new product. So this is where
Yeah.
GRC comes in. So I hope
Yeah,
if
I got your
someone
point.
asks
Like
you
being
tomorrow,
compliant will
yeah,
gain the customer trust, right?
correct, correct. It's more about the
Mhm.
reputation of a company. So yeah, customer trust is
Mhm.
a very good point. Uh, Especially in today's world, if you look at tech companies, they don't call the security teams as such. They call it the customer trust teams. Like let's say if I'm working for Splunk slash Cisco, my team is called the customer trust team. We build the trust with our customers. We are the providers for that. So if
Mhm.
tomorrow someone asks you what exactly is GRC, you give them this answer that it's a very strategic approach to aligning business objectives with the IT and regulatory compliance. Then you can further deep dive and mention the second and third point, which says that it helps organizations to establish policies, procedures, controls to manage risks and meet legal requirements. Okay, so uh, I mean, it's very start of the course, but I just want to highlight to you that anything that you see in your company, anything, any process, let's say if someone has told you that uh, there's a biometric, there's a formal dress code, how many leaves you can take or anything,
Mm-hmm.
everything needs a policy and or a SOP, right? You cannot do
Yeah.
anything without a policy or something. So GRC governance is that part of GRC which helps in formulating those policies, defining a system within the company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so are we good here?
Yeah, like I'm
Okay,
clear with this part.
okay. Now, coming to why GRC matters, I think I have already answered it, but I'll just uh, read it again. So, reduces the risk related to security breaches, fraud, regulatory violations. So, let's say if I'm talking about GDPR, you might be knowing the fines that are there. So, either it is 4% of the annual turnover or somewhere around 10 to $15 million. You can imagine it's a big impact to any company. I mean, even if
Right.
we pay fines, you would under even if you are earning, let's say 50,000, 1 lakh, if you have to pay 10,000 to a policeman, you definitely feel pretty bad about it, right? So just
Yeah.
extrapolate that if you are earning in billions and you have to pay in millions, it's very difficult for anyone to pay out of their pockets. So this is why GRC matters the most. You need in today's world, no matter where you are working, even in India, there are different regulations. If you go to any other country, there are different regulations, and anything that you want to sell, anything that you want to do in that particular country, you need to be compliant to their regulatory
Government
regulatory
policies. Yeah.
yeah, right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. Second point, we already discussed about corporate reputation and trust among stakeholders. So stakeholders could be the customers, board of members, CEO. I mean, everyone. Stakeholders could be
Directors.
yeah, various number of people. So yeah. Now coming to the third point, helps in achieving regulatory compliance with standards like ISO, NIST, GDPR, HIPAA, etc., SOC 1, SOC 2, SOX. So once you have defined a very good governance GRC system, so that
Mm-hmm.
enables you to be compliant to many other certifications by default. So let's say, I'm just giving you example here. See, NIST is one of the holy grails of compliance. Okay, if you are a NIST compliant company, you are by
Mm-hmm.
default almost 80% of your controls are covered for ISO 27001 as well. Around 70, 75, 80% of controls are covered for your SOC 2 certification. Around 50% of controls are covered for your SOC 1 certification. GDPR and HIPAA I'll leave out because these are more specific to region and this one is more specific to the industry. So I'll leave out these,
Health
but
industries. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what GRC enables you to do. I mean, once you have developed a very good GRC system, it will automatically, let's say if today I am compliant for ISO 27001, tomorrow I want to go for a GDPR, definitely many of my controls will overlap. If at least 30%, I would say, if I am ISO 27001 compliant, I can very assuredly say that my workload is only 70%. 30% I am covered through ISO. So this is why this helps a lot. Okay.
So hers like ISO and NIST, these are the frameworks, right? Or kind of standards.
These are best practices.
These are the best practices that are like
Best
followed by the
practices.
industries.
Yeah. So
Okay.
NIST is a standard, NIST
Mm.
CSF 2.0 currently, and it has around, I guess, 800 controls in that. I do not have the exact number, but it's somewhere around that 800. So if you are
Mm-hmm.
in any company, you won't be compliant to all the 800 controls. But out of those 800, based on your company size, based on the processes, You
Yeah,
pick out
their
a bunch
requirement.
of
Yeah.
controls. Correct. It's
Hmm.
tailor made mostly. So
Yeah.
that's why this is a best practice standard. It's not a hard and fast standard.
And these are
Okay, like
common among all the like these two ISO and NIST. These are common among all the this one organizations, or there are some other standards also.
see, ISO has many variations. ISO has 27,001,
Okay.
20,000 something, 24,000 something, 25,000 something. So all those are for different requirements. So ISO 27001 is
Okay.
ISMS, Information Security Management System. This is one of the most common
Okay.
standard that you will find in most of the companies because it is the information security management system. It is the most crucial one. So if I'm talking about any other
Hmm.
ISO standard, uh, it's like, let's say if I'm talking about 24,000 something, so it's about just backup and disaster recovery. So it's a standard specific to backup and
Okay.
disaster recovery. Okay, and NIST is something
Okay,
that
so
was
this all
developed
will be
in the
coming under the ISO part, right? Like the ISO family, it will be coming, right? 24,000, 27,000. So it will be coming
correct,
under
correct.
that.
Right.
Okay.
But the
Mhm.
most important one is the 27,001, which is mentioned here. If you are
Okay.
compliant to this one, because ISO 27001 already has controls around BCT, few other standards that are there, they are just more deep dived into a particular section. So this covers all
Mhm.
all the areas, but those are more specific to a particular area.
Okay.
Okay.
And one more thing you
Oh, I'm
mentioned, like between ISO and NIST, there are some a few similarities, right? 40 to 50% is of similar, right?
correct.
Then what is the difference? Like difference will be coming under the controls, like they will be having different controls, or what is the difference between these two?
So see, NIST is a framework. Okay. NIST NIST is
Mhm.
something that let's say if you are building a company today, if you follow the NIST guidelines, it's a framework, it's a best
Mhm.
practices framework. If you follow NIST, you will set up a very good governance setup in your company. Okay. But let's say if you are providing some service to your customer, let's say if I am your customer, for me to believe that you are doing a good job managing my data, managing everyone else's data, I cannot I cannot go on your word that, okay, boss, I have referred to NIST and I have implemented the NIST controls. I want someone to certify that. Okay, someone external, not
Yeah.
you. Getting my point?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
this ISO 27001, it's a certification which is given by an external party. A third party auditor would give you the ISO 27001 basis the audit that he carries out. And then you can show me, I'm your customer, you can show me, see boss, this is the certification I have got from the auditor, which validates my ISMS system is very efficient and effectively working. That's where I gain confidence in you.
Okay.
Understood?
Got it. Yeah, got it.
Okay. Yeah. So just give it some time. I would say just hold your uh, a few thoughts that you're still having. Those will be answered. Just bear with me.
Sure, sure. Yep.
Moving to the next slide. So these are just terminologies. Governance is a framework for decision making, policies, and internal control. Governance is the most, I would say, the first step towards building a GRC system. You need to decide on what policies you are going to have, what internal controls, how you are going to manage the entire company. Then comes the risk part, where you identify, assess, and mitigate risk to business objectives. So let's say, I would just give you an example. We can go through that later in the course. For example, if you are setting up a company today, okay, uh, let's say you are based out of Gujarat, okay, you have your data centers in Gujarat. Okay. But for one reason, I know that Gujarat is quite prone to earthquakes. Okay. How
Yeah.
do it's a risk, right? If any earthquake happens, your data center would be collapsed and mostly all your data center data would go away. correct?
Right.
How would you minimize that risk? Can you put down your thoughts?
Uh, so maybe if my data is residing in one data center, so maybe I will be having my data in another kind of another data center, so that
Right,
if
a
something
backup.
happens to this region, yeah, backup kind of, yeah, DR, the disaster recovery, right? So we can plan
Correct.
in that way.
Exactly. So that's how you have identified one risk. You have assessed
Mhm.
what exactly is my risk, how it can impact me, whether it's a customer impacting risk or a business impacting risk, and then you find a mitigating solution to that, that you would do backups.
Okay.
Correct. I would suggest,
Mhm.
if someone
Right.
asks me today, in today's world, what I would suggest is go for cloud. Host your data on AWS. You are totally free of your
Yeah.
data. AWS will take care of the
Mhm.
backups, will take care of the availability zones and everything. So you are just, uh, you are free of all the requirements of maintaining a data center. Correct?
Yeah, physical data center, right.
Yeah. So that's what risk management means. You identify a risk, you assess its impact, and then you find a
Mhm.
mitigating solution to that. We'll come to risks more later in the
Okay.
session, I guess module 3. But yeah, this is just to give you an overview. Then comes compliance. Compliance is basically adhering to laws, regulations, and industry standards. I think we have spoken about this in detail. Uh, Anything on this slide you would want to ask?
Uh, no, I'm good with this governance, risk, and compliance. The fourth point, can you touch base once?
So control
Structured approach to
framework
the
is
managing.
like
Yeah.
I mentioned.
Mhm.
So it's a very structured approach to managing security risks and compliance. I mean, you need to have a framework first before you, let's say if you are, so see, anything that I'm telling you right now, you take it as an example if you are building your own company today. Okay. Don't look at Amazon or
Mhm.
Google, which already have their processes in place. Imagine Google 30 years back when Google was just a startup. Okay. You cannot, let's say if you're starting up a company today, you cannot just go ahead and define controls for everyone. Okay, that you need to, let's say every user needs to have approvals before they get access to some system. You cannot just tell that to people.
Mhm.
You have to make a framework around that first. Identify what are
Yes.
the processes that are there. Basis the processes, you define your controls. Basis the controls, you give them a rating, whether it's a entity level control or just a service level control, and basis that you define your entire framework. So this is about it.
Okay.
Okay.
So COSO and COBIT are also kind of frameworks only. Like we have a ISO and NIST.
COSO,
So COSO and COBIT
yes,
is also
right. So COSO is a very,
okay.
very old framework. I mean, uh, it was used somewhere when the dot-com bubble was blowing up in the US and even in India. So COSO is a very, very old framework, but yeah, it's still considered as the what I can say. It's still considered as the baseline for most of our frameworks, because it was like you would understand, right? Anything that is developed earlier is kind of considered as a base. So in
Mm-hmm.
today's world, I don't see anyone referring to any of the COSO principles or anything, but it's just there. People might ask you, let's say if you are going for an interview tomorrow, high chances that people will just ask you very randomly, can you tell me a few things about COSO? Can you just highlight what is COBIT? These are just touch upon questions. They won't deep dive into anything. They will just touch upon these points. Okay. So
Okay.
whenever you
So
are
COBIT is
preparing
also
for an
old one,
interview,
like legacy framework.
very old, I guess 20, 30
Okay.
years back. So that is fine. Anyway, what I was saying
Mm-hmm.
is, whenever you are going for any interviews for GRC, Always just
Mhm.
read about COSO COBIT, maybe watch a YouTube video. So this is the COSO framework overview. This is the full form. Committee or sponsoring organization is a model for internal controls. So it focuses on five key components: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information communication, and monitoring. And just very quickly touch upon all these five components. So control environment is the foundation of internal control systems, which means the
Mhm.
control environment is the organization's ethical values, integrity, role of management, accountability structures, and responsibility assignments. So this is what control environment is. Coming to risk assessment, you already know, right? Identifying both the
Yeah.
internal, external risks, conducting risk assessments regularly, determining the impact and likelihood. So make a note in your brain. Anyone asks you what is risk, risk is equal to
Mhm.
impact into likelihood. I think this point is very clear. So
Yeah.
and then comes the part where you need to implement measures to manage and mitigate the risks. So we'll come to risks later, like I mentioned. Control activities is basically the IT and security controls that are there. Okay, you need to define controls, then only you can have a system in place. Coming to information and communication, so it is basically the effective communication between departments. It is the communication between you and your customers, your stakeholders. So let me tell you a very generic point. Let's say if any breach happens today to Zomato, have you heard about certain
Mhm.
CERT in
No,
Computer
Harsh.
Emergency Response Team India? So certain is a government body.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything related
Okay.
to IT breaches or anything in India, certain is responsible to look at. A few years
Okay.
back, I think you have seen my LinkedIn profile, right? Uh, just go
Mhm.
and look at a few articles that I have written previously. I had written one article about certain, their new regulations. So, which says that if any
Okay.
breach happens to your company, you need to report it within 6 hours of the breach. It's a very unfair
Within six
time,
hours.
within
Okay.
6 hours. So, it's a very unfair ask, I would say. In the US,
Mhm.
this is generally 72 hours because this gives you time to at least analyze what happens, right? Because in, let's say
Yeah.
today Zomato get hit by a ransomware or some attack. I mean, I don't see a point of responding to this in 6 hours. Maybe the risk is mitigated. Maybe that it's not such a harm to me. Maybe the data is not maybe the data loss is not that significant or something. I should have time to respond.
Mhm.
But in the US, it's
Yeah.
72 hours. But certain has given Indian
Mhm.
companies like 6 hours only. So it's very unfair. But this is where communication part comes in. So you need to communicate to your customers, you need to communicate to your stakeholders that a breach has happened. Okay,
Oh,
let's say if
okay.
you are going, you would have seen in your company, if any system is going for a planned maintenance, you would get a mail, right,
Yeah.
that this would not be
Yeah,
working.
in
Even
advance we
your
will be getting a
banks.
mail. Yeah.
Correct. So this is where communication and information comes into picture. Information is also paper documentation and reporting mechanisms. But yeah, that's about it. And
Mhm.
then monitoring activities. So let me tell you a very important point. Make a note of it. Whenever you are talking
Mhm.
about compliance to anyone, always mention continuous monitoring. Okay. Whenever you are implementing a new system, whenever you are implementing any controls, whenever you are
Mhm.
auditing any controls, you need to have a monitoring control as well, which monitors on a timely basis that whether the control is working fine or not. So that's where monitoring comes in. Okay. Why do we have
Okay.
regular audits? Why is it mandated to have a SOX audit every year? Why? it should have been like in 10 years we are having one audit, maybe in 5 years we are having one audit, correct?
Yeah.
But why we are having it regularly within 1 year? Even in 1 year, there are certain times when we are having 6 months audit. Every 6 months we are having an audit. Why? You got the answer, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I understood.
Okay. So yeah, this is uh, mostly about uh, COSO. Why is it important? It's used for SOX compliance. I mean, SOX is since SOX is also a very old standard. It was based out of COSO, and then this provides a
Mhm.
structured approach to risk identification and mitigation. So what you need to understand is, let's say if someone, see, I'm giving you interview tips while going through the course as well, so you need to be very vigilant about it. Okay, people will ask you about
Yeah.
COSO COVID. Very briefly, they will just touch upon it. What you don't need to make them
Mhm.
understand the full form, explain all the principles or anything. You just need to give them a very high level answer. This is COSO. This is what it is used for. These are the components. And at last, why is it important? Okay, why are we referring to COSO? Why are you even asking this question to me if it is not important? So that's where you need to mention why is it important.
Okay.
Okay. So
Mhm.
the last point which is mentioned here helps in achieving operational efficiency, reliable reporting, compliance with regulations. So these are the reasons for which COSO is very important.
Got it. Okay.
Uh, any questions on this slide or should we move ahead?
Mm, we can move to the next slide. Yeah.
Okay. So see, whichever session that I am taking, the next day I'll keep the day free for you to
Mhm.
go through that session once again, maybe look at the PPT, form your understanding. Because see, if I go in haste, definitely I won't have any problem, but definitely you may face challenges, correct? Because I can go on my
Yeah.
pace, and at the end of the course you would have grabbed around 30%, 40%, but I want you to grab somewhere around 70, 80, even 90%. So for that, it's
Mhm.
very important for you to absorb what I'm sharing in one session. And I think to keep the next day free would make sense. Uh, Let me know
Yeah,
if
we
you
can keep a one
also
day gap. Yeah, like
correct.
we can keep a one day gap, Harsh. Like it will also take me, to learn these jargons. I need to understand more. I need to invest my time also here.
Right,
So I will
correct.
go like once you have completed, I will go to the recording once. I will prepare my own notes also. And if I have any doubt,
Exactly.
I can, ask in the beginning of the next session. So we
Sure,
can
sure.
proceed like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that works. Okay. Now coming to COBIT. So
Copy.
COBIT is a framework for IT governance and management. And as mentioned here, it bridges the gap between business risks, technical issues, control requirements. Again, this is a very old standard developed by ISACA. ISACA is a certifying
Mhm.
body, so it's an old standard. And this is just to
Mhm.
manage your IT risks effectively, ensuring security, optimizing your IT resources. So COBIT is all about IT. Okay, IT, aligning IT with the business strategy. Okay,
Okay.
today
Aligning IT with the business
the
strategies. Okay.
in today's era, everything is related. Any company that you are working for or any company that you see, it's somehow dependent on IT, right? I mean, without the
Yeah.
laptops, without the servers, without the networks, cloud, nothing can work, right? So somehow or the other, your business strategy is reliant on IT, and COBIT is a framework for IT.
Mhm.
Okay, and
Okay.
it's similar to COSO. It has again five core principles. First is meeting the stakeholders' need. So this ensures that IT supports business objectives, meets stakeholders' expectations, optimize resource use and risk management, how much you should be investing in IT. That should again be aligned to your business goals. So this is where meeting the stakeholder needs comes from. Coming to the second
Mhm.
point, covering the enterprise end to end.